Creepy encounter when selling a car. So, I'm selling my mom's car. She bought a new one and isn't really very internet savvy, so she asked if I'm willing to do it and she'll split the money with me, or if nobody buys she just writes it to my name. Some people have come to look at, and one evening a man calls asking if this is still available and he could see it. I said yes and gave the address, and he arrived after an hour or so. At first he seems okay enough and asked questions about the car. My husband was also there and they went for a test drive. When they return he starts looking for faults and complains how he thinks the price is too high. We tell him that the price is not negotiable as the car has few miles and is kept in good condition. He gets more and more angry, demanding for lower price and states that we can't get it sold with current one. We tell him that in that case we simply keep it. He gets even more angry and starts yelling at us how he drove from another town, etc. We tell that we understand, but that's the possibility that you might not end up buying. He yells and curses and demands we sell for a significantly lower price and we refuse. Finally he asks one more time if we agree with offered price, and when we say we don't he gets in the car and drives away. I was a bit nervous after that as this psycho now knew where we lived, but it happened 2 weeks ago. We haven't seen him again. Still a bit nervous though. He's not creepy, he just wants you to like him. My dad and I were never close. I wasn't close to anyone from his side of the family, but his 2 younger brothers set off every internal alarm I had. Uncle 1 turned out to be molesting his stepdaughter who he raised since she was an infant. Uncle 2 is who this post is about. I'll call him D. I have several siblings and we have many cousins living in our small town. They all think D is the best, lots of fun to be around. I never warmed up to him, I didn't trust him and he had a creepy vibe. I kept my distance and my mom never made me hug or have physical contact with anyone I was leery of. D lived next door to Grandma and seemed to always be down with some kind of illness. I was staying with Grandma for the day and she was making food for D because he was sick. She fixes him a plate and tells me to take it over. I'm not happy about it, but I know better than to disobey, so I take the food next door. I walk in the door and he yells out and says bring it back there. I walk into his bedroom and set the plate on the wardrobe by the foot of the bed. D says he can't reach it there and to put it on the nightstand next to the bed. I take it and set it on the nightstand and D grabs my wrist. I panic and pull away trying to get loose of him. He's pulling me towards him and I brace my foot against the nightstand and resist and saying let me go. He says I just want to talk to you. And I just say let me go. I'm ready to leave that hand behind if necessary and he finally lets go. I bolted out of house but said nothing to Grandma. Later that evening I tell my cousin and she said I'm stupid, he doesn't know why I'm the only kid that doesn't like him and he just wanted to talk to me. I should feel terrible about thinking he was trying to pull me into his bed. What a terrible thing to say. I didn't mention it to anyone else and began to question if I was wrong and reacted badly. I felt guilty for a long time but still stayed away from him. As I've gotten older and look back, I think my reaction was correct. What adult tries to get a kid to warm up to them by grabbing them and pulling them towards a bed? What adult continues to do this when they can see the child is terrified? You get a child to warm up to you by terrifying them. No. Adults with good intentions don't do these things. We were obedient children. If he would have said wait, I want to talk to you, I would have obeyed. D passed several years ago and there were rumors about inappropriate behavior with young girls, but nothing more than rumors. Encounter with creepy Christian neighbors. 30F. First and foremost, while I am not a Christian myself, I do hold a healthy level of spirituality, and I am quite honestly okay with any faith practice out there, provided that it is also healthy, and does not overstep its boundaries. People are people and have the right to do as they please. But attacking someone using your faith as a weapon, that is something that I do not do, so I live in a rental house with 2 friends in a pretty decent neighborhood. We're in very close proximity to the neighbors, which is a fair portion of the reason that this is a problem. We've met them before in passing many times, but never had an actual conversation with. So I picked up yoga when I was in college as a means of relaxing and getting my mind right. It's something that I do daily, once in the morning, and sometimes in the evening. One of my friends also practices yoga, and we usually do it together on our outside patio area. So the neighbors I'm referring to are a family of 4, husband, wife, college-age daughter, and teenage son. I won't mention any names out of respect for privacy, and the obvious that nobody will actually care about their names. We were practicing yoga one morning, around 7 a.m., and the wife comes out and walks over to our fence. She seemed kind of cheerful, but she turned smug really fast. She said, "Do you have to be doing that really?" We tried briefly to converse with her from afar, but when we couldn't get the reasoning, we went over to her. She said that what we were doing wasn't right and that she didn't want her children exposed to that. We asked her what we were doing that was so wrong, and she pointed out that yoga was a form of meditation that isn't Christian, and that they raised their family to believe in God. This woman also pointed out to what we were wearing, which was yoga pants and tank tops. She went as far as to point at my chest and say that during our yoga sessions, a lot of the moves and poses we did, put those on display, and it was something that she didn't want her children seeing, so the Lord that she pays worship to have bestowed upon me the D cup. So no matter what I wear, they are going to be at least somewhat displayed. Lady, I can't help that. Both myself, as well as my chiropractor, wish that this wasn't as big of an issue as it is, but it is, so we'll have to live with it. I just smiled and said that I'd be happy to cover up a little bit more during our morning yoga sessions. This wasn't enough, because she said that under no circumstances was it something that we should have been doing in the first place. Eventually she went back inside and we went about our day. It was 2 days later before we heard from them again. We were doing yoga outside, as we have been doing since we moved in, and we get another visit. I even went as far as putting a hoodie on, just to show a level of reasonability. This time she came with her daughter and we got yet another earful about doing yoga. It was like she was on a mission to save our souls, rambling about manifesting energy, paying tribute to a Hindu god, and tampering with the metaphysical world. My friend had enough and told them to please stop harassing us, because we do yoga for about half an hour in the morning and in the evening, and that's it. We go on with our lives. She then pointed out that when they pray, they're not doing anything different than what we were doing. The two of them became very offended and then pouted off inside their house. The final straw came when the husband/patriarch of the family knocked on our door and handed us a pamphlet that, I swear, literally highlighted the dangers of yoga and the human soul. It looked like something you could find at the front of a church. It labeled a number of things wrong with it, and also listed a few things you could do to get right with God. For fuck's sake, it's yoga. I fail to see how this is offensive. We're not trying to hurt or offend anybody. Our other roommate, who is the only guy in the house, went later that day and returned the pamphlet to them and said that if he heard from any of them again that we would be pressing harassment charges on them. Thankfully we haven't heard from them since. We still practice yoga outside. It's our property. We have that right. As much as I'd love for there to just be peace, at some point you just have to put your foot down and acknowledge that it's ridiculous. If any spiritual person found anything I said to be offensive, I do wholeheartedly apologize. I'm not condemning all Christians, just the toxic ones. Creepy encounter in a college town. This happened about 5 years ago when I was attending college in a small, rural town. I was 21 at the time, and I lived in a duplex with 2 roommates in a neighborhood. We had 2 houses on either side of us. We never really saw our neighbors much or talked to them. Until, it was maybe 3 to 4 a.m., I was just getting home from my boyfriend's house. I pull into the driveway and start walking up to my door when I hear "Help me. Please help me." At first I was so startled that I bolted towards my door, but then I realized someone might actually need help. So I slowly walked back out front and noticed an older woman laying in my neighbor's yard. She calls out to me again. "Please help me, I think I broke my hip." I fell off the porch. I walk over to her and ask if I can call an ambulance. She says no. "Can you please go inside and get Dr. Jones?" I don't remember the exact name she said, but I do remember her saying doctor. I'm going to preface this by saying I know my next actions were not smart, but I wasn't thinking clearly at the time, so I walk inside the house and start calling out for Dr. Jones. While inside I notice an open bedroom door with the light on and a mattress on the floor, which I assumed was the woman's room. I walk further back into the house calling out for Dr. Jones, and he eventually comes out of a back bedroom. He looks just as startled as I was. I tell him the situation and he follows me outside and helps her up. They thank me, and I go back inside my house. The rest of the time I lived there I never saw either of them again. Still one of the weirdest things that's happened to me. When you are the creepy encounter, a bit of context. I am a female, 22, I am petite, really pale, and always with messy hair. I was wearing loosened clothes, all white. Maybe you will guess where I am heading to. I was outside smoking, while sitting on a chair in my front yard. I forgot to mention an essential detail. I live in the countryside, my street leads to fields and forests. The night here hits differently, if you know what I mean. The sky offers some great masterpieces freely to our starry eyes, so yes, I was just hyper-focusing on the sky. I just stood up and decided to take a picture. I wanted to reproduce it through painting. However, I was really disappointed by my lame camera. So I decided to head out inside to grab one of my parents' phones since their quality were better. While I was trying to take some pics, I felt a gaze on me. It was my new neighbor. She was staring at me. I was in my front garden, just in front of her house. I was waiting since in my front yard there is an automatic light. It flashes at any movement and lasts for like 20 seconds. Important element. So I was only visible for a few moments. It was pitch dark again. There are no street lights where I live. So I was relieved to feel invisible. As I was finally taking mesmerized pictures. Out of the blue, the flash of the phone I was holding started to light up. The moon was right on the left side of her house. Yeah, it looked like I was taking photos of her house. I heard her screaming. I put my hand on the flashlight, turned it off. I was petrified. I didn't know which option was the best. A. Fleeing right away in my house, so reactivated the flash, looking suspicious. B. Confronted her, also talking to her for the first time, and explaining the whole situation because I scared her quite often. I will explain after the other option. C. Just disappearing in the dark and waiting. Okay, so I am a night owl and I love art. It is not unusual to see me outside standing right in front of my house or in the middle of the driveway past midnight, taking pictures, smoking, or just contemplating. So I spooked her multiple times. I know because she said that I was the weird neighbor to someone. One day, I was playing in the front yard, playing with my cat with a red light laser, obviously late at night. I accidentally lighted my laser towards one of her windows, so a flashy red light point was visible. I heard her screaming, lighted up the room. I turned it off and I glanced at her. She was looking at me and shut the curtains. Back to the story, I decided to not move and wait. Then I was like, I should still continue taking pics. I heard loud voices, the front door opened. I heard them walking slowly towards their car and whispering. What was I supposed to do? I just took a last pic and headed to my house. As the flash went on, I was petting my cat. I heard her saying again, this weird chick. As soon as I closed the door, I laughed out loud. Nervous reaction. Maybe. I should find a way to talk to her, reassuring her that I am inoffensive or just remaining the weird neighbor.